there's a video of Bo Nix and barking at Sean Payton. Some people are making a big deal out of it. Ryan Clark has racialized it. I mean, could you imagine that? Let me find. Yeah, Ryan Clark has racialized it and said, this looks a little different than it did last year with Russ, doesn't it? Guess Bo has earned that through all of his NFL experience, though. He's basically saying that Bo Nix is a rookie. He's yelling at Sean Payton. The broadcasters are actually saying, hey, you know, they're kind of praising Bo Nix for standing up to Sean Payton. Your thought, well, before I get your thoughts, let's hear from Sean Payton and Bo Nix about it. This is Sean Payton comparing Bo Nix to Ferris Bueller. Let's play shot number 9.
Coach, how would you characterize the conversation you had with Bo after the miss fired in the end zone to Franklin? And I've seen you have these conversations.
It's part of the deal. Listen, last year, all of a sudden, it's just, there's still a little bit of Ferris Bueller in this player that we got to get rid of. All right, talking about Bo, and I love him to death. And so sometimes it's my love language. All right?
Can you say what it was about?
No.
Okay.
No. Absolutely not.
All right, so help me out here. I've seen the movie Ferris Bueller, but I don't remember it that well. When you say someone has some Ferris Bueller in him, what's he talking about?
Well, I think is he playing hooky? Is he not showing up to class or practice? I mean,
kind of goofy.
Sean Payton
Goofy?
does a team.
Why are you whispering, Butter? Like,
because I don't know what the reference is. I'm just trying to.
Goofy.
I think goofy.
All right, he's goofy. He's got some goofy in him, Steve. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess during the team roll call at the meeting room in Denver, does Sean Payton go, Bueller? Anyway, look, I get the sense that Bo Nix has to be a student of the game. He's kind of a scrappy quarterback. I don't think he has great physical athletic ability, so he has to be, quote, unquote, a student of the game. I'm old enough to remember when his father was a pretty good quarterback in the SEC for Auburn, was actually a coach, was at the University of Miami for a very forgettable spell as their offensive coordinator. So I'm assuming that this young man knows ball. Like, he actually can really think the game, and he has to be a student of it. And I believe there are some issues in terms of the relationship between Payton and Russell Wilson, because they didn't see eye to eye. And again, this is just my guess, and I'm speculating. Sean didn't completely respect the football IQ of Russell Wilson in terms of what they were running last year. But I do have one question. I really hope now, based on what Rachel Clark has said, I hope Bo Nix one day adopts black kids. Clark's head may explode. If he adopts black kids, that may be over. Maybe the final meltdown for Rachel Clark.
Let's hear from Bo Nix. Play SOT 11 and 10 and 11 back to back. SOT 10. And let's hear from Bo Nix on this.
Bo, there was a very lively conversation with you and Sean Payton after that 45-yard incompletion there. What was going on there, and why were you so heated about it?
Yeah, well, he turned and looked at me and said, I love you, and I turned and said, I love you back.
Bo, Coach said with a smile that you still have some Ferris Bueller in you. Do you know that character from the movie?
Yeah, I've watched the movie. But, I think, it's funny. And that literally, I think, explains the situation, that we're just out there with, great competitive intensity and fire, and we can have those conversations and move right back along and score, another few touchdowns. It doesn't bother us.
So one of the things that's been reported is that Bo Nix changed the play that Sean Payton sent in, and yesterday he called a play to the wrong receiver. And this will get you crossways with a head coach. There's nothing, these head coaches all think they're geniuses, and if you overrule them, particularly as a rookie, it's going to get you crossways. But I think you have to, particularly when you have the leverage. That was my point with Ryan Clark. Is like, hey man, this isn't a racial thing. This is a leverage thing. The Denver Broncos and Sean Payton clearly wanted to run Russell Wilson out of town last year. And so that's what that whole dynamic was about. Russell had no leverage. The head coach is the new guy with the contract, and he wants his own quarterback in there. And now you got a rookie quarterback who they drafted in the first round, and the rookie quarterback has the leverage. They need him to be successful, so he's going to have more leeway, freeway than Russell Wilson. That's all it is. To turn this into some sort of racial thing is just stupid.
Well, no, it's Ryan Clark, but judging by that interview, I get the sense that Bueller and Dennis the Menace Payton, as Bill Parcells once called him years ago, I get the sense they're better personality fits. They're kind of the same guy. They're both a little red-ass. They're guys that have to overachieve. They really love the game of football. Let's go back to Ryan Clark real fast as it relates to Russell Wilson. I used to be the biggest Russell Wilson fan in Seattle, but it turned out that a lot of his teammates, specifically on the other side of the ball, and even Marshawn Lynch, who needed to talk to Russell Wilson's assistant to give him a phone call. I'm sure that played real well in the locker room. A lot of the Seattle players were not on the same page, and I don't want to say disliked Russell Wilson, but outside of him being a marquee quarterback at that time, they weren't completely behind him. And Jason, here's the thing. I would guess that most of that Legion of Boom, that side of the ball, they weren't white players. So to make this into a racial issue, again, Ryan Clark is not being honest about the perception and the reality that has existed with Russell Wilson. It's never been a black or white thing. He alienates everybody, it seems like, to a certain degree.
So now you've turned me into a Russell Wilson defender because I'm someone that thinks we're probably doing a little too much demonizing Russell Wilson in Seattle. And I say it for this reason. Take Marshawn Lynch. And forgive me for speculating, but I want to look at the way that Marshawn Lynch carries himself. I'm going to look at all, how comfortable he is with drugs and marijuana and wanting to be one of the boys from the Bay Area. Russell Wilson is a little suburban dude who, I'm going to keep my distance from Marshawn Lynch. What he's into, what all of his friends are into, I'm good. He may have thought the same thing about Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman, last time he ever made news, he was trying to beat down the door so he could beat up his wife or his wife's father or whatever. And so Russell Wilson, not real comfortable with the criminal element that is within the National Football League. I'm just keeping it real. Jabril Peppers just got arrested in Boston or whatever this week. We went from this whole, remember when Mike Florio and all the NFL media spent 2-3 years forcing Roger Goodell to deal with the criminal element within the NFL. And we got to clean it up. And you got to become the czar of discipline. We got to get a player conduct code. And now the media is just like, hey, we're just going to look the other way. It doesn't matter how many of these guys get involved with criminal activity. We're not addressing it anymore. There is a criminal element within the NFL and a lot of these professional sports because, just quite frankly, too many black athletes want to be rappers. And so Russell Wilson just wasn't built for that. And so he's just not comfortable. And I'm not saying this in any way trying to say like I'm better or I'm cooler. It's just like, because I run into the same issue, but because I grew up at the Masterpiece Lounge and in the inner city, I can deal with those guys. And I could sit here and tell you like who I'm friends with and what gang they're in and all that other stuff. But not everybody's built for that. And so I think Russell Wilson is a different version of Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark has a different version. Caitlin Clark is not built for the hardcore, lesbian, angry black woman that the WNBA is. She's just not built for it. Russell Wilson, not built for the criminal element which lurks within the Aaron Hernandezes and all these great teams that end up with a bunch of guys on the police blotter. That's just not him. That's not who he is. And so he struggled with that. And now we all beat him up about it because he didn't know how to get along with Marshawn Lynch or Richard Sherman.
Okay.
I blame. That's a bad look for them, not for Russell Wilson. How about them apples?
That's not bad. That's not bad. Now, Jason, I was going to ask you if you could fit into the butter box, but you kind of redeemed yourself. That explanation actually kind of said, okay, you know what? I kind of see where you're going with this. But here I thought on NFL Fearless Monday, there'd be no mention of the logo, but you fit it in and it was actually kind of good. I got to give you credit. This is why it's your show. But Jason, put away the racial or the cultural differences that players may have. But this is what I know about Russell Wilson. In his 1 year in Denver, they're taking one of those international flights to the games. And in the middle of the flight, instead of like a normal person to stave off blood clots, instead of walking to the lavatory, saying hi to everybody, walking down the aisle, the guy starts doing like wind sprints and burpees in the middle of the plane. You don't think guys who are just trying to sleep are looking at this guy, what is with Russell Weirdo? Then, here's the other thing. Then he did that video, Mr. Unlimited. And I'm like, oh, that has nothing to do with racial issues, cultural differences, where you grew up. When you're Mr. Unlimited. And then he had his own office. He had his own office, aside from the rest of the players. And Sean Payton, first thing he did is, all right, we're dismantling that thing. Get your ass back to a locker. There are certain things, Jason, I'm not saying what you said was completely incorrect, because a lot of it was valid. But there are other things that were very, very odd about him. It did not play well in the locker room with every single player there, regardless of race, color, creed, religion.
I bet you it wasn't every single player there, but here, I'm going to defend him again.
Ugh.
Look, man, he's not built for that element. And he didn't handle it right, and they started trying to put safeguards. Hey, let's give him. He's kind of goofy. He's the quarterback, and he can't really connect with the defensive side of the ball and all these guys and the expectations. And so he didn't handle it right. But when you get dropped into an awkward environment, you may start acting awkward. And it's an awkward environment for you. And so when I look at, I'm going to once again go to Caitlin Clark. Some of the things I don't like about Caitlin Clark, how emotional she is on the court and bickering and arguing with referees and all that other stuff. I think she's in an awkward environment. Women's basketball, going all the way back, high school, summer league basketball, college. It's all, they've so poisoned it with this toxic hip hop energy. You go into arenas and it's all the curse word. I'm talking about summer basketball, AAU basketball. The music is bitches and hoes and N-words and this and that. For some people, that's like an awkward environment, like normal people. That's an awkward environment. And then they start acting in an awkward manner because they're in an awkward environment. Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.